Good afternoon, and this is our part five of Reframe webinars that we're doing as a series of multiple kind of podcast webinar style. And all of this leads up to what Reframe's about and some of the events that we have, and more to come on that. I'm Carlos Garcia, co-founder of Reframe, and joining me is Hector Garcia. If you're joining for the first time, we're the founders of this organization that is built with a mission to help the accounting profession level up, become the most innovative, forward-thinking, and creative of all professions. And today we're going to talk about a whole lot of great, valuable content. There is CPE for those who are joining and want to get their CPE credit. The quick instruction is you have to stay for the entire hour. Hector will be sharing some polling questions throughout, and you have to answer those polling questions in order to be eligible for the CPE credit. We have a few live events that we've got not only virtually, but only in person that are happening before our capstone event, which is the Reframe in Miami in November. We're excited about that. Today's conversation is going to be around pricing, but specifically around price packaging. And Hector's going to go over some really, really good quality information that helps us understand what is price packaging. There is this concept of price positioning spectrum and how to present options effectively, right? There's ways that you can package and you can position your services with certain pricing rules, if you will, so that you can help the other person on the decision-making side to better understand what makes sense for them if they were to hire you for your professional services. And we'll talk about the importance of asking the right type of questions so you can arrive at knowing how to design the right offer. Because we don't want to get into cookie cutter pricing. There's just a great methodology you can follow so you can effectively know how to price so that it's profitable for you and the client relationship. And we'll open it up for questions and for community takeaways. We'll talk a little bit about some of these events that we have coming up. This Tuesday coming up, we have the Exactly How to Role Play. We'll tell you more about that. We have a paid webinar course that's going to be 2 hours with CPE credit. It's coming up on June 2nd. And then, of course, we have an in-person event, which is our last one of our US tour, which is the NYC event. So, as I mentioned before, this is a 10-part series. You are currently in number 5. In our website, you'll have access to all the recordings for the previous ones that we've recorded or on Hector's YouTube channel. And this is all leading up to the theme of our this year's conference, which is pricing with confidence, happening on November 2nd through November 5th. And all of these recordings will always be available in Hector's YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, I'm sure many of you are already subscribers, but if you haven't, definitely check that out. He has a ton of great content in addition to some of our Reframe content. And typically we'll post that about a day after the session. Okay, CPE process, as I mentioned earlier, you get a 1 hour CPE if you attend at least 50 minutes or more, and it will be emailed to you within 10 business days. And if you have any issues, and you can go ahead and directly email Hector for that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the US tour. We're very excited. We've already had some tremendous success the last couple of weeks. I had the opportunity to facilitate the one-day workshop in LA, and we had tons of fantastic accounting professionals, some of you who were there. So if you were there, say hi on the chat. Would love to see you again virtually and say hello and give you a shout out. And we talked a lot about communication. How do you elevate your communication? How do you show up to conversations so you can be more influential? How can you slow down the process and essentially become a better position, strategic partner for your clients, but also just a better communicator in leading client engagements, not just about selling. This is all about relationships that you're building in your entire world, even in your personal life. And if you are a leader of your firm and you have team members, how do you lead those conversations and lead them to perform better and become more productive and have a more harmonious relationship all around? So our last one is Monday, June 9th. That's coming up soon. Hector and I will be there. It's in the One Penn Plaza. Thanks to our amazing partners at ADP who are hosting the space, and they're generous enough to actually take care of breakfast and lunch for us. So make sure you take advantage of that. I will definitely add the link, or Hector, if you can go ahead and add the link to the chat for folks who want to learn more about that. We did LA, we did Dallas, and we did Chicago, and our last stop is New York City. Don't miss it. It definitely is a once in a lifetime. And for those who came to Reframe 2024, this is a little bit different. A lot of the people who came to Reframe 2024 and came to this, said this was way deeper. This was had more of an intimate opportunity to practice conversations and really help people get clarity and confidence around how to really approach difficult conversations, whether it's articulating your value, setting boundaries with existing client engagements, knowing how to respond to highly anxious and highly panicking kind of clients. Like, it's about really slowing things down and elevating your skills. So hope to see you there for those of you who might be interested. If not, keep hanging out with us in these free events and we'll continue to add more value for you. As I mentioned before, it's a one-day workshop. We do it very mastermind style, and we continue the themes that we covered from Reframe 2024, which was influential conversations for accountants. We do cover the exactly what to say methodology, which we co-wrote with Phil Jones. This is the accounting exclusive edition that only Hector and I, only Reframe has access to. And so you only get access to this little book packed with 23 magic phrases you can use in conversations to be more influential. And you get 8 hours of CPE as well. And then it also is kind of the preamble to a full certification to be exactly what to say certified, which I will conduct virtually in July. One of the biggest words that we get, from everyone who has come to Reframe, and these are some of the words that people wrote at the end of our 2024 event. But what we ended up getting out of 122 responses, the most common word that came out was transformative. We are in the transformation business, and if that's what you're looking to experience, continue to hang out with us and come to one of our events. A couple of last events just to share before I transition it over to Hector is we've got a virtual event coming up, which is exactly what the role play live. We'll get to talk a little bit about, some of the things that you can practice, those magic phrases that you can use in some of those high stakes moments so you can be more effective. And that's free, coming up on May 27th. Again, if you look at the link that Hector will be sharing with you, you can take a look at all of the events that we have going on. And then lastly, we have a paid webinar that's going to be a 2-hour workshop that Hector's going to teach. And the theme is the question is the answer. And this is a great preamble to what that webinar is going to be about. So we got a lot of stuff going on. Check out the link that I just put in the chat if you want to learn more. But let me transition over to Hector, with what we're really here to talk about, which is today's conversation, introduction to price packaging. So Hector, take over.
Awesome. While I transition over, I'm going to launch the first polling question. So if you are in CPE mode and you got to get your CPE certificates, tell us how answer that question for us. Let me share my screen. Carlos, just confirm with me that you can see my screen. Carlos, confirm you can see my screen.
Yes,
Good?
sir.
Okay. I'm going to leave the polling question up for a little bit longer. I'll just ask if anyone that's here in this live webinar went to Reframe 2024 or came to any of our events where Carlos and I have gone to: Dallas, LA, New York. We did New York last year and we're doing New York again, or Chicago. Put in the chat to tell people to come to our events, because we have thousands of people that watch these webinars and they're in the list, but only a couple hundred end up showing up. And let everybody know that this is a valuable thing to do. It's for you. It's like, it is a business. Carlos and I run a business, but trust me when I tell you, we do it because we think it's extremely valuable more than anything else. It's because we feel very, very fulfilled about how this content and the workshops and what we teach and what we get people thinking about and talking about is the most transformative thing I think that's available in the industry for the subsection of consultants that are similar to me, right? Small business, do tax, small firm, bookkeeping, high touch, high value relationship building with their clients. All right. So I'll end the polling question and let me get started. So, introduction to price packaging. First thing I'll ask you to do is to look at the screen, stare at the screen, and tell me in the chat what you feel. Okay, what are the things that jump out? What are the things that you see? Carlos, if you can start reading them off the chat, just for the people that are going to watch the recording afterwards that are not live, start reading. What is it that you see immediately? What jumps at you? What you like? What you don't like?
Boring, wrong order, a lot of words. There's a lot, jumbled, too crowded. That's what I got so far.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Busy.
I wasn't looking for that. I was more looking for the numbers, but that's fine. I was looking for anybody looking at the actual numbers, the comparison between the packages, the colors, the positioning of each one. Okay. So that's the only thing I wanted to have you guys point out. But you're right, that is
Vector,
obviously.
it got better. Bad anchoring. Weekly is most expensive. Too cheap. Actually, not. So I guess somebody else kind of
Yeah.
backtracked.
Yeah.
The more expensive ones should be brighter. Kind of interesting. There's some, yeah, fun comments in here.
Yeah, yeah, that's very good. So I kind of wanted to get that initial thing, and then we'll talk about like how to get to the point where you present something like this, but to the point where you feel comfortable, where you don't think it's boring, where you don't think it's crowded, when you think the colors are right, where you think the presentation is correct. The reality is that everybody's going to look at this and react to this differently. I'm going to show you a different version of this. And let's forget about the number of words or the crowdedness, just the presentation. How different does this look? What jumps at you on this one? Carlos, you can read them out loud as they come in.
Yep, waiting for the chat to come in, but obviously Anna says, most popular. This one looks easier to read, not as hierarchical, hierarchy.
Yeah.
Easy
So,
to decide on most popular. Still, someone says too much information. Most popular call out is good. Advisory is front and center. Higher package should be first. Pushing the popular one. I think a lot of them are kind of catching on that the popular one is kind of like where you want the eyes to see.
okay. Well, Hector, Carlos, what about you? What jumps at you?
Well, one of them is vertical and two of them are horizontal.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
my eyes immediately feels easier to read the one on the left because we typically read from left to right.
Yeah.
Of course, the most popular at the bottom. Um, without being judgy of the visual aesthetics,
Yeah.
but there is a lot of content, right? And so that could be challenging for some people to make a decision, to have a lot of information.
Okay. How about this?
Much easier.
Right. Why is this much easier?
Because I only have one thing to look at, and then I evaluate, what value I get out of all these elements with what I would need to pay.
Okay. Now, what about my other options? So, like, what happens when, like, in your opinion, what happens when you don't present the other options next to it? Like, we're gonna discuss the concept of choices and options.
Yeah, I mean,
But
well, part of it, there's no context here, right? You're just telling me what do I think. You're not telling me what was the conversation, what was my need. You didn't tell me how you position this. So without any of that, I would immediately feel like you're pushing something onto me without knowing what I need. But if there was more to the story where you really, really understood my challenges and you feel like all of these elements I address my problem and maybe budget was covered, and if all of that extra context, I may feel different about how I see it. But without any other context, I would say, yeah, I have nowhere to go. I only have one choice.
exactly. So let's contextualize this to, again, I'm going to ask you to accept that this is exactly how we're going to present it. This is the font choice. These are the color choices. Let's not get too much into that portion. But the way you would probably say, I'm going to go back for a second and say, these are the three options that we're going to offer the client. Like, so let's narrow it down to, these are the prices I want to charge. I'm making good money on the deal. The customer, these are the things that I think it's within the range of what the customer can pay. And these are the set of services that I chose to put in each of the packages. So we're not going to get to how I arrived to that, because that requires a 2.5-day event, right? To discuss, how you arrive to a price and a number and the packaging. But let's just accept that I'm going to give the customer three options: 500, 900, and 1700. Those are going to be the three options. But best way to offer the three options, in my opinion, is that before you show this slide, or before you show this printout, or before you show the printed option first, is you're going to tell the client, because of the fact that you said blank, and because of the fact you said blank, that could be changed to, based on our conversations and all the questions that I asked you, or based on the answers to all the questions that we had during the conversation, or based on yesterday's conversation about all your needs, my recommendation of the best possible thing that we can offer as a firm is this option. Now, we're saying the best possible thing that we can offer as a firm. Some of you may be thinking, oh, that number is too small. Okay, fine. Let's change this to a different number, so like you don't sort of get stuck on that. So let's just think of a different number altogether that you can think of, if that's kind of like maybe the way you want to see it. So maybe not the the 1,700, maybe is the 7,000. So it doesn't really matter, right? So whatever number you say, I just want you to be focusing on the scaling of the presentation. So we say, based on the conversation we had yesterday about what you need, the best possible service our firm can offer is this service that we call Weekly Plus Advisory. Essentially, everything we talked about, instead of working monthly or quarterly, we're going to work weekly. So you discuss that you want to know exactly how much money you have in the bank, how much checks are outstanding, that the banks reconcile with the online banking, and we're going to do all that work weekly, but we're still going to deliver the financial reports once a month. We're going to include, QuickBooks Line Advance. We're going to do accrual-based accounting, and we discussed what accrual-based accounting means. And we're going to do 24-hour response, because you told me that that you wanted that. You particularly said the reason why you were leaving, the last accountant was because they took too long to answer. So I'm going to give you the most premium option here, which is 24-hour response time. And what's great about this package is that it's cancel anytime, no contract. You told me that one thing you hated about the last firm is they made you sign a 6-month contract. And that's normal. A lot of firms do that. We have options where we do that. But in this particular package, there's no contract. So any month you want to stop, we just stop. And the payments due at the end of the month. So we give you a little bit more flexibility with this package. Also, satisfaction guarantee. At any point in time, we screw up, we don't respond, we don't deliver, we don't do what we said we did, we don't just refund, we refund you the last 3 months if you're unsatisfied. We don't even ask why. Okay, like we place so much high value in our relationship and the quality of our work that we're willing to take the risk that at any point in time you don't want to work with us anymore, we'll refund you 3 whole months. And this will include monthly training, because you told me you wanted to get your controller to become a CFO. This will have a financial statement review, because you told me that you want to learn your numbers in and out, and a strategic advisory follow-up, because you told me that your last accountants were not proactive enough. And the only way for me to be proactive is for us to set the strategy, suggest the tactics, and then follow up to see what you did about what we said we were going to do. And you told me that you hated that you got audited 10 years ago and you had to pay for that separately. We'll include that. If you get audited, we'll include that. Even if the state audits you or workers' comp, that's included in this package. And even after we're done working with you, we'll keep the documents in our portal for 7 years, and we'll give you a hard drive, a physical hard drive with all the documents you have, a USB hard drive immediately upon termination. And then you shut up. You're offering, this is the best. You're offering the very best, the top of the notch that you have. And then the customer at that point will give you more information. They'll say something like, whoa, 7,000, they could be shocked, or they could be only 7,000. That's okay. Like different customers, different tastes or different perspectives, but they will give you information. And then if they think the package is too much, or they can't afford it, or you didn't present the value correctly, or you presented best case scenario, everything that they wanted, right? But maybe they don't need everything, but it's everything that they wanted. They may come back at that point and say, any other options? Okay, and that's okay. But what this did different than presenting the 3 options all in a row is it took away a little bit of that anxiety, the choice anxiety of, like you guys said, busy, too much information, but it allows you to present the one service the best possible choice. Then once the customer says, you know what, I don't need all that. There's a lot of that. I don't need all that. There's a lot of responses like that. I don't need all that. Then you say, absolutely. So this is the package that we want to graduate you to eventually. So keep in mind that at any point in time, as your business grows and as your requirements grow, that's the package that we're going to be looking at. And that's it. And you stop there and you set the stage that the next level up of your service is that package. And now you come in and you offer the other two choices in your 3-choice model. Then you can say, most people go with our middle package, where we won't do it weekly, we'll do it monthly. We won't do QuickBooks Line Advanced, as we discussed. You can do a lot of reports, advanced reports on that, but maybe you don't need it. We will do cash basis, so we're not going to monitor your invoices and your bills. As we discussed, that it would be nice for you to have that, but you have internal staff that can do that. We won't have priority response time, but we'll have your maximum 2-day response time by any person in our team. We don't have a contract. We will make you sign a contract, but we do need 90-day cancellation notice, because we're going to basically schedule a particular resource to be working on your file. So you can cancel anytime, no contract. We just need 90 days to phase out. The quarterly that we discuss will be, the training we discuss will only be quarterly, not monthly, as we discussed. And the financial statement review with the tax planning will be done quarterly only. And the payment will be due at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month, whatever the term choice is. And then you don't have to even discuss that there's a third option. You show it, but then you offer that second one. And then you let the customer ask, what about the third option? And you can say, yes, we have the third option there for customers that are a bit more budget conscious, that are not looking for that proactive growth that we discussed yesterday, that you think it would be very nice to have, but they want to get started with us. It's a great foot in the door. It's the minimum we would need to at least get you compliant, but we will still, based on what we discussed, the most popular choice would be that middle option, which is a $2,000 option. And then you leave it there, and that's it. And then you're going to have and then at some point, if you have a conversation where people want you to compare all three and say, wait, okay, tell me exactly how the three work, then you would have some sort of way or some printout to go back to something like this. So then you can compare them line by line. And then later on, we're going to get into exactly how we compare them with using Ron Baker's 7 T's. But that's kind of the way I think it could be organized. The other part, other way that I could suggest, also putting together the 3 options, right? If you're going to show them in one page, is to give them labels. So for example, you can have the best option, right? The most popular option, and the basic service. You don't have to put it down. I mean, you don't have to you say this is bad or you don't have to insult, so to speak, the options, but you can call it basic service because it is, basic service. Carlos, you want to add something?
There was a question. I thought it was an interesting. It's like, why different names? One says monthly support, the other one says quarterly ready. The other one's called weekly advisory plus advisory. Any thoughts behind the naming?
Yeah, great question. So obviously what we're missing is who's the customer, what their needs are, what the conversation was all about, what they told us. We're missing we're absolutely missing all that context, right? Like we don't have that, and we don't have time to get into that. That's why we have the 2-hour webinar, right? So we can talk about how to do context building, right? So evidence gathering, context building, that's part of the questions. But if in the discussion, right, in the value conversation discussion, we could have discussed, and this is probably why we would use those specific names, is we have discussed the frequency in which we will give you updated reports, right? So like in that discussion, let's say one of the customers sticking point is how often they're in the books, or how often they give us a report, or how often we get to talk, right? Those are kind of the things that people think about. So like, how often will you be doing work? How often will I be looking at reports that I trust? And how often will we be having interactions? And the conclusion of that again, the context here, the conclusion of that conversation was that the variable piece here, where the customer place the most amount of value, is in that piece. So because of that, we named them after how often the work will be done. But if it's not focused on that, okay, if it's not focused on that, then you would change the name. So instead of calling this weekly advisory, you can call it advisory plus, and you can call this one just advisory, and then you can call this one compliant. Okay, so if that's more palpable because the conversation that you had, the bulk of the theme was advisory versus compliance, then you name the packages in that spectrum. See, spectrums are really, really important. And sometimes we're not, I think the naked eye is not as, or the naked ear is not as good as immediately detecting what are the spectrums that are being discussed. So sometimes one of the things that could be helpful is, especially if the call is a Zoom call, is to grab the transcript from that Zoom call, run it to ChatGPT and say, hey, can you tell me the main theme in terms of the value spectrums? And we're gonna talk about value spectrum, the value spectrums that we have, so I can use that as the method for titling the packages, because labels are really important, right? The metaphor significance of the label is really important, right? When the customer goes out and buys these three options, they have to pick, do I want to be a plus customer? Do I want to be an advisory customer, or do I just want to be compliant? And the customer will make that choice based on the label that you're giving, and you give them the label in order to help them choose. And then you have obviously the features under it, and then you can explain the features. But I wanted to make sure that's important. We have Edgar says, you can call white glove, like white, that's a great term, white glove, premium, gold, like all those terms that point to the premiumness factor, right? White glove is great too. You can use. So, but again, the most important thing, and Carlos, thanks for asking, is the name of the package should not just be what you want to name it. Based on the value conversation, it should be personalized based on the value spectrum the customer places on choices. And again, you only get that through the quality of your questions. Okay. So let's transition to like one of my favorite quotes of all time. And it seems like a really weird quote, but I heard Blair Enns say, I hear Blair Enns say this quote all the time. Blair Enns is one of the speakers that's going to be at Reframe in Miami, which is, there's only two ways to make money in business. One is to bundle, and the other one is to unbundle. And it seems like a very trite comment. It's like, what do you mean? That sounds like everything, right? Like bundling and unbundling sounds like the whole spectrum of everything. Kind of sounds like that, right? And the best way to kind of like grab this quote and contextualize it to accounting, right, is bundling is a package of services. Is when an accounting firm, creates something called an essential package, and for that particular client, it calls it, makes it $1,500 a month, like the examples you saw, and they include a bunch of things in a package: monthly bookkeeping, financial statements, quarterly tax statements, annual tax returns, one 30-minute advisory call, unlimited custom reports in QuickBooks, unlimited email. And by bundling and not unbundling, right? So you have to see them as two spectrums. By bundling, none of these services have individual value. The value is done as a whole, and you can't remove them. So a client can say, hey, I want this, but remove unlimited email support. You can say, look, we include that as part of our bundle because without the email support, we can't, reach our outcome. Or we include the bookkeeping because with the bookkeeping, we can't do the tax return. We include the quarterly tax estimate because with that, we can't plan correctly for the tax returns. We do the financial report strategy because with that, we can't improve our bookkeeping. Like you basically bundle it in such a way that they don't have any individual value by themselves. Okay, it's almost like getting surgery and having a couple of options. Right? So you have the pre-surgery, you have the anesthesia, you have the actual surgery, you have the post-op care, and then you have all the pain medicines. And then you're going to the doctor and say, you know what? I want to do the surgery, but remove the anesthesia, remove the post-op, and I'm going to choose a different medicine. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like when they tell you this is your solution, you have to get the whole thing, because it's a systems, right? Like it's a system. It's not a single service, it's a system. So that's exactly what he meant by that's the two ways to make money. Because in a package, essentially your customers are not going to use everything, but they're going to gladly pay for the ability to access everything. Okay. And you and your intent and your resources are set up so you can offer everything if it's possible, if they want it, but it's all included. So I say, don't worry, you pay one price, everything's taken care of. Now, when you unbundle, that's when you piecemeal your services. That's when you separate the monthly bookkeeping, that's a cost, and the monthly financial reporting, that's a cost, and the quarterly tax estimate, cost, and you break them, and you break them in such a way that if somebody were to buy everything separate, it would be more expensive than the bundle. Okay. But it's not necessarily for the purposes of bundling. It's more for the purposes of having a higher margin in the individual services. Now, the other way to unbundle is, instead of offering all these services, you only do one thing and one thing only as a firm. Like you grab one of these things and say, this is the only thing that we do as a firm. And because we do that and that only, and we're experts in our craft, and everybody is certified and trained to do this one thing, and we do it a million times, and we've seen a million customers and a million cases, and every book we've written, an article and video, it's about that. You're going to pay top notch for this thing. But then what ends up happening is, when someone's looking for that particular thing and they find you because they're looking for someone that only fixes that particular thing, they're willing to pay a premium price, because the bundlers, the people that offer the bundle services, couldn't help, to fix that little subset of the problem. And that happens to be the single most expensive problem they have. So when you bundle, when you package a service, you're looking for a customer that has a whole bunch of little problems, and your bundle is going to soften all the little problems. And when you unbundle is when the customer has one or two really, really big, expensive problems, and they're looking for best in class in that category. That's why he says that's the spectrum. Now, as you start thinking about, whether you're going to bundle or unbundle, and you're starting to think, man, I got to increase my prices. And this is a little preview of something we covered in the Reframe Society. It's, think about the price framework. So think about 5 dimensions of the price. When you come with the number, there's 5 dimensions. One is your positioning, the resources, inflation, commitment, and excellence. And it used to be innovation, by the way, but I put inflation just because I changed it slightly because of the current times that we're in, where inflation tends to be a little bit more top of mind than innovation at the moment. But the original one is innovation. I'll kind of break them down for you. So I want you to ask yourself, before you come up with the price or your price increase, is, okay, when I go present my package, my bundle, my options, and I'm going to significantly increase the price of the tiers based on what they were before, or increase the average price of my packages or whatever, ask yourself this question. So for positioning, is this service price to just get the job done? So that would be one side of the spectrum. Or is it there to reflect the strategic value that the clients are looking for, particularly when it comes to growth? Resources. Is this price or this package there only to have basic execution, right? Just to do, right? They want a pair of hands to clean something up and leave. Or are we putting together advanced tools and systems and expertise that we have invested over the years and applying that to give the client, the best possible service? Now, inflation or innovation, is the price stuck in the past, right? Like, are we stuck with some old pricing model, an old pricing table? Have we not looked at the change of prices in the market? Or are we truly reflecting all the costs to deliver great work today, which includes tons of price increases from almost all of our software vendors, right? The past couple of years have been just incredible, the amount of price increases and the price increases of our team. We have to pay our team a lot more in order to keep them and maintain them, because we're losing talent. Or we have to pay ourselves more, right? As the main person, as a principal, or if you're a solo firm, to be able to survive and not take a job and continue to do this, as an entrepreneur, a firm owner. The next one is commitment. So the question you ask yourself is, does this fee cover just a deliverable, or does it cover, on the other side of the spectrum, access, attention, and speed of resources that the customer expects? And the last one is excellence. Are we pricing for completion? Like, are we just trying to like pass with the C, or do we want to be excellent and shine? Are we pricing for clarity, insight, and most importantly, transformation we create for our customers? So you ask yourself that question and you think, where is this price in that spectrum? And it's always going to be that spectrum. The other framework I really, really like, okay, for pricing in this case, so let me go back for a second. So the price framework is the service. So think about the service itself, like your offering. The second one, now you're going to start looking at your customer. So we jokingly call our customers PETA, right? PETA. Put in the chat, what does PETA stand for? Not the PETA that I have here, but what does the PETA really, really stand for? So how much of a PETA a client is? What is it? Yeah, pain in the butt, right? That's the PG version, right? So I'm flipping it. I'm reframing it, for the lack of a better term, and tell you that you want as many PETA clients as possible. That's what you want. Your firm aims for PETA clients. But what does PETA mean? It means proactive, involved, thorough, and ambitious. So if you were to grab, pain in the ass, right, PETA, and look at your client, instead of looking at them on the negative side of PETA, flip it and look at the positive side of PETA. But what does that mean? And you use this you literally use this in conversation. I tell my clients, and I'm quoting myself on this slide, by the way, I don't do that very often, but I tell my clients, I only work with PETA clients. This is how we do our best work. And our customers always say, what does PETA mean? It means proactive, involved, thorough, and ambitious, right? And customers go, I'm that. I'm proactive, I'm involved, I'm thorough, I'm ambitious. And then what ends up happening, one of the things that's really cool about this is, once you set the stage of proactive, involved, thorough, and ambitious, when your client is being a pain in the, like a real, literal, and physical pain in the ass, then your response is, hey, you're being a little bit too involved. You're being a little bit too thorough. Are you being a little bit too ambitious? Or are you being a little bit more too proactive? So you respond to their pain in the assness with one of the components of the PETA acronym that you reframed, and then the customer actually hears both things. Hears, oh crap, I'm crossing the line, and two, oh crap, he's recognizing that I'm not being a pain in the ass. I'm just being too proactive, too involved, too thorough, or too ambitious, right? So the breakdown here is as you look at the customer, right, you're pricing the customer, is you think, is this client passively waiting for us to act, or are they taking initiative and bringing momentum to the relationship? Involved, do they disappear between deliverables, right? They stop showing up, stop sending documents, or are they engaged in the process and invested in the collaborative success, right? Thorough, are they okay with quick surface level work, or are they expecting deep thinking, deep details, clear documentation, attachment of a transaction on every document, whatever it is? And ambitious, are you just trying to stay afloat as a business owner, or are they aiming to grow, transform, and look for long-term wins? So you underwrite this with your client, through your conversation. You think of this spectrum. Like, if you have internal notes, think about how they are in proactiveness, how they are in involvement, how they are in thoroughness, how they are in ambitiousness, and you ask questions to get that. Just like you would ask questions from an employee. Like, if I would venture to say that if you want to get the best possible employee, the best possible worker in your firm, is ask them this: hey, how much of a PETA are you? They're like, what? Yeah. Tell me about how proactive you are, how involved you are, how thorough you are, how ambitious you are. You have a conversation around that, just with the client, and you're gonna do it in a way that feels natural, of course, right? So that's a nice one too. So just a quick reminder, there is a polling question for the CPE people, so you want to answer that polling question if you need your CPE. So the next kind of framework I want you to think about is the price positioning. So, and this is both for either the service packaging that you're offering and your firm as a whole. So every accounting firm out there, it's either going to be on the economy side of the spectrum or the premium side of the spectrum, right? And then I invite you to look at the screen and place a dot, right? Where your firm is at the moment. So place a dot where you are at the moment, right? So put it in the chat, right? Are you in the middle, close to the middle, to the left? Are you center right? Are you all the way to the right, all the way to the left? And you're going to ask yourself two questions. One is, where does your firm lie on this spectrum? So your firm, the positioning of your firm. I'm not talking about the services, talk about your firm, right? So which category the firm is in. And the second one is inside, right? So whatever you lie, right? Whatever you lie, that sets the price level. But then when you offer your your three options will fall into the spectrum too. So you're going to have a economy spec. You can have a package that an option that's somewhere in the economy side, an option that's somewhere in the middle, and an option somewhere in the premium side. So you want to think of it in two dimensions, not just so your firm one for positioning, and the second one is in the individual services. And this is what they mean, right? So economy means bang for the buck, right? This is what your customer thinks, what your customer looks for. Lowest price amongst competitors, right? So competitive pricing. Essential features, right? They don't want a lot of complexity. They just want simplicity. They think of cost effective, right? No frills, right? So simplicity, tangible value, things that they can measure, and they think of it as a service, right? On the premium side, is the other side of the spectrum. They're looking for exclusivity and experience. They're looking for premium pricing. They're looking for comprehensiveness, right? I never say complex, right? The opposite of simple is not complex. The opposite of simple is comprehensiveness. They look at it as a long-term investment. They look at it as a premium service. They look and value the intangibles. What's intangible? Prestige, brand, status, feelings, right? Very hard to measure, but very easy to feel. And of course, it's not a service, it's an experience. And Ron Baker would argue it's a transformation, but transformation is such a much complex term. So we'll just call it experience for now. So the most important thing about these spectrums is your service, your product a commodity, right? Where the customer sees it as a transaction or a cost of doing business? Does it move one scale up, and is it a convenience where people are looking for a trade-off? They're looking to save time in exchange for money or gain time in exchange for money? Or is it a luxury where the customer wants comfort or experience? Or is it an investment where the customer wants transformation? And you will know this based on the quality of questions that you ask, based on their responses. Like, you're not going to show them this line and say, what are you looking for? Under each of these categories, there's a particular set of questions that trigger an answer that tell you what their preference is. And the preference on these could be broken down based on your bundle service. So it's not necessarily for just a particular service. It could be for a particular line of service. So for example, they could be seeing the bookkeeping side of your offering as a commodity, a transaction, a cost of doing business. They could be seeing the fact that you answer them quickly as luxury. They want really good experience. They could be seeing the fact that you upload the attachments for them and sort them and organize them as convenience. And then they could see the fact that you will have a P&L and balance sheet ready. So when the bank needs it to raise the loan, the line of credit balance, and the line of credit balance is needed so they can take over at a particular opportunity to buy the product for cheaper or enter a new market, that transforms their business. So in that conversation, you can have different lines of services that you offer in your bundle that fall into different sides of the spectrum. And based on where they side in the spectrum, that's where you know how to change that particular option inside of the three service options. Carlos, anything to add? I haven't asked you a question in a while.
No, I think the visual representation and what it all means is absolutely phenomenal. And I think through the conversation and asking questions, you're able to really understand where someone's mindset is when they're shopping to either buy a service or a product, and just listening for the cues that would help you understand, are they looking to save time? Are they looking for something that gives them peace of mind? Are they looking for a drastic change? Like, all of these are the cues that we can listen to when we're asking really meaningful questions. Asking questions is great, but listening for the client cues, I think, will help us understand where are they in this spectrum.
Right. We ask questions, we listen for cues. Based on those answers, we offer services specifically based on where they fall in the 7Ts framework. So the 7Ts framework is something I learned in Ron Baker's Implementing Value Pricing book. It's absolutely phenomenal, right? And actually, like, I was being very Hector when I took this and I actually implemented it in my firm, that I expanded it to 12 Ts. And I'm going to give Ron Baker all the credit for the 7 Ts. But when we do this exercise at Reframe Miami, we're probably going to do the 12 Ts because I'm a little bit overachiever. And then and times has evolved a little bit, where there's actually a little bit more nuanced and there's actually more line level options you can create in a package. So I'll break it down for you really quick. So tailoring is when you customize and contort your services and and the way you show up and how you show up based on their needs. Talent is who in the team are they requiring or wanting or needed skill set wise to do the job that they're particularly asking for. Technology is which tools will the customer allow you to use, which tools will the customer force you to use, right? Like, I'm sure you've had clients that say you have to work in desktop and you're like, I only work with QuickBooks Online, or I use Xero, and you're like, okay, I'll try, and it kind of fails massively. Terms is, are you modifying the payment structures or giving them flexibility on timing and policies, that sort of thing, cancellation policies, return policies. Timing is, are you prioritizing speed, deadline, urgency, right? Not just how long it takes you, but how quickly they get it or how quickly you respond. Transference, which actually means transfers of knowledge, which is, are you educating and training the client along the way so they can understand and eventually fire you, which is great. Actually, I personally believe, like, my job as an accounting firm that advises and teaches is to position my customer financially so well that they can hire a CFO, a controller, and a whole accounting team so they don't need us anymore. That's the best way to get fired. Right? That's the absolutely best way to get fired. So we always work as if that's the goal. And we're okay with that, because that client grows and maybe they outgrow us. There'll be a whole bunch of other clients that need our help. And that's our goal. We have a particular subsection in revenue growth and number of customers that we serve, and we want to push those people up. And a lot of those clients that we have graduated up, they stop working with us on the bookkeeping, on the accounting, but guess what? They get me involved before they sell their business because they value my advice. They get me involved before they acquire another business because they value my advice. They get me involved when the two partners are fighting and they're like, remember Hector? He was amazing. Let's get him in and let's use him as a mediator. So they get me involved in like higher level stuff. Like, I've had clients that I graduated that have called me to ask me if I would be their the executor of their trust, and this is way after I stopped working with them, right? Because that's because they knew it. And then the last one is travel, right? Are you willing to meet the client in person, or do you have to physically the location? Are they showing up with the proverbial shoebox? In a virtual firm world, travel will translate to just all your out-of-pocket costs, that you need to serve your client, or Zoom, QuickBooks Online, all the stuff that you need. So with that being said, I'm actually going to transition it to Carlos, but I want to ask you, take a picture of this. Take a picture of the 7Ts, okay? Take a picture in your phone so you can have it ready, or a screenshot. So have it handy. And I'm going to switch to the next slide. And then I'm going to ask you to identify, and Carlos, you help me read this kind of out loud, identify which of these 7Ts are in effect in this 3 options. So I wanted to show you the 3 options first, have you criticize it, then take you through the price value spectrum, then show you the 7Ts, and then have you look at these 3 options from a different point of view, a different set of eyes. So which of the 7Ts are here? and how? So Carlos, maybe you can start using telling out loud.
Yeah, the first call out is timing. Yeah, response time is different based on each service level or how often they're going to get delivery of a specific service. Like there's involvement, which I think is transference, monthly training on
Or
the
talent.
weekly
Yeah, both of them.
advisory, right?
Yeah.
Um, let me see, customizing. Oh, tailoring is really on all three, right? Kind of.
Yeah, I would
Um,
say the tailoring would be like the cash basis versus accrual basis, where we're tailoring to their accounting needs. Exactly. So
yeah, I
you
mean,
actually see them all. You see all seven. You actually literally see them all here. The only one that you kind of not really see is the travel one because you're not. There's no context here on traveling, but we're including QuickBooks Online, well, advanced on the highest one. So there's a like the cost of doing business, all the bundled costs that we have in there. We have transference of knowledge, we have terms, the satisfaction guarantee is a terms option. So I kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a spectrum of, a little bit of context in terms of like Ron Baker's book is really amazing. Implementing value pricing is really amazing. And the 7Ts like just changed my entire point of view, made it very easy for me to put packages together because I don't feel that I have to pull them out of a hat. I feel that I have a framework to figure out how to split this up. So it makes it so easy. And like it's changed our firm. Like we offer these things. It just has changed our firm like a zillion percent. So Carlos, I'll transfer over to you and conclude with the preamble, the high quality value conversation, and what we're going to spend 2 hours on next week on the 2 hour course.
yeah, and this comes from a video that Phil Jones recently released on his YouTube channel, which was really insightful and a reinforcement of a lot of the things that we talk about when it comes to understanding context of where the client is at, where they want to be, um, where they've been. Really, it's understanding kind of their frame of mind as they're coming in to potentially hire you for professional services. And none of this is really context about the work, but it's more about just understanding the client's goals and their needs. And all seven questions, if they could be asked in the entire conversation, would be amazing. But we know that often there's not enough time to ask all these questions. But I would tell you that if you could get really good at gathering, using at least half of these questions in every client conversation, your ability to get clarity on how to position your offers and your options for the clients will be a lot more sharper, because this helps you connect what they care about, what their reasons are for hiring you. And when you're using their data, not yours, right? When you're not trying to push your agenda, you're really trying to connect to their needs relating to what their goals are, then it's going to make it more effective in you being able to win that business opportunity. So if you look at it, the first is a contextual question, which is, I'm curious what prompted you to reach out about a new accounting partner, right? So you could say, why us? I mean, if you want to keep it short, right? Hey, I'm curious, why me? Right? That's just, you can make it longer if you want to try to make the question a little bit better framed. If it's experience based, you can ask, just out of curiosity, what's been your past experience with year-end engagements? And obviously, we're using this as a specific example, but insert the specific need that they're coming to you for. If you want to understand where they're at, it's a current state question. You say, well, walk me through your current bookkeeping and close process, right? Get a better understanding of the ins and outs, get a better understanding around what scope could look like, get a picture of what they expect and what's missing. Are there any gaps? The realization question is, when was the last time a filing delay cost you penalties, right? You can get a little bit of a help them self-discover the value and how important it is in not getting things done within compliance. So you're somewhat planting seeds in some of these questions about helping them change their perspective of what is valuable and what's not valuable. Then you've got the consequence question. What happens if that delay hits again this quarter? And it helps them self-discover the urgency of needing you and the value of hiring a professional like you to stay in compliance. And you've got a values-based question on a scale of 1 to 10. You know, 1 being not so much, 10 being this is absolutely 911. How important is it that real-time financial visibility, that you have it real-time financial visibility to you and your business to make better decisions? And then you've got a challenging question. Is there a good reason you wouldn't fix this now? Right. And so some of these things are meant to help the other person reach a more clear decision on what they need to do. And also, it's like these are courageous questions. Many of them are courageous questions. Some of them are curious, right? And some of them are, context focused. But there are some courageous questions because you, as the professional, are subtly communicating to them, I value your time, but I also value mine, right? And are we here to do business, or are we here to just say hi and bye and let me think about it and stay in what I like to call maybe land? We want to get people out of indecision. And these are some great ways to accelerate the speed of decision. You're on mute, Hector.
I wanted to give you a quick preview. It's a resource that I've been creating for years. All these questions are in this really big guide of questions. A long time ago, I made this resource free, but as I've been making it bigger and bigger, and Carlos and I have been breaking down all these questions, all these concepts, all these frameworks, I've been creating one big document for like pretty much everything that I ever learned that's related to questions or quotes or something that's quick frameworks that has inspired me. I have it in this document, and I'm gonna share this document with people that come to the webinar that's coming in next Monday, the 2-hour questions webinar. So you will have access to that, and we're actually going to use a lot of those questions as part of it. So if you like these concepts of asking better questions, I'm going to run a polling question right now, the last polling question. Your next steps are either one, well, you can do all of them. So come to Carlos's EWTS role play. It's in the slides, okay? Register for the 2-hour course that we have next week, deep dive 2-hour course on asking questions for accounting professionals. Come to New York City. That's probably the best immediate event that you can come to. It's the 3 of us. It's a full day. It's a bunch of accounting professionals talking about how to communicate better, exactly what to say, deal with bad situations, difficult situations with your clients, sell your services better, all that stuff. Continue to watch this Reframe webinars, of course, because this concept will never end. This is probably the single most important part of reframing or rebranding the accounting profession, is for us to be better communicators. And lastly, come to the Miami event for the most, as Carlos mentioned, the most transformative event you can think of. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the polling question. Thank you, everybody, for attending the webinars. We're going to send you an email. We're going to send you an email with the slides, with the recording, with all these links and the additional information you requested. So be ready for that. Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thanks.